guest today is a Miami-based storyteller who spent almost 2 decades proving that community isn't just where you live, it's who you fight for. She spent 16 years writing ad copy for Macy's, helping generate close to $130 million a year for the company. Solid corporate career. Then in 2006, she walked away from it to become a city liaison for Historic Overtown, one of Miami's legendary Black neighborhoods, once known as Little Broadway, a hub of Harlem Renaissance era entertainment that got fractured by highway construction in the 60s and never fully recovered. She thought that liaison job was her calling. Turned out it wasn't. What she was really passionate about was communications and production. So she pivoted again, and in 2008, she launched StephanieCreates, a media, event production, and communication company built to help Overtown and communities like it tell their own stories instead of having someone else tell it for them. Since then, she survived. Her word, not mine, survived over a decade of hail, hurricanes, a pandemic, and every curveball small business ownership throws at you. She produced television series from MDC TV and CBS 4, made for DVD documentaries, recognized on IMDb, and she hosts 2 shows of her own, Just Talking Business, where she talks shop with fellow entrepreneurs, and Jigsaw Parenting, which brings together parents from different races, cultures, and professions to unpuzzle what parenting really looks like. She even stood on the TEDx stage in Overtown to talk about the lasting impact of helping your neighbor. Hello, welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast, wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm your host, Melvin Larry. Stephanie Van Vark, welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast.
Thank you very much, and I'm so excited to be here. And that was a pretty good research.
Oh, was that? I did okay?
You did okay.
I'm so proud of myself. I may just be somebody when I grow up.
Right. Look at you.
Well,
thank you.
you.
I'm so excited you invited me to have this conversation.
Well, it just was destined to happen. I'm excited. We met a couple of years ago at the Podfest in Orlando in 25, then again in 26, then we went to Podcast Summit. And so it just had to happen.
Right.
So
it was supposed to happen at Summit, but
it was supposed to happen at Summit, but hey, listen, stuff happens and stuff doesn't. Okay.
Exactly.
But I'm so glad that we're here. And why don't you heard me talk about my description of who you are. How about you tell us who you are from your perspective?
Ooh, yours might sound a little better. I just really consider myself a community girl. I grew up in a small town where community, serving others, supporting others, taking care of family, friends, and neighbors was just as important as life. And I've tried to carry that on through life. And in what I do every day, a lot of the projects that I really invest in and am passionate about are about things that highlight communities, and particularly, communities that have a really bad perception connected to them. We want to tell a different story. We want to let people know that's not necessarily what the media may say sometimes is not necessarily fair and true. And so that's where a lot of my passion, my creativity strives. Let me see how I can cultivate a sense of um, community, unity, understanding through media.
Excellent,
So,
excellent. Well, doing the things that you did in a corporate perspective, I mean, $130 million a year for a company, that's a big deal. It's a serious corporate career as well. What did that version of you believe success looked like back then?
well, when I first got out of college, you come to this corporation, and Honestly, it was money. You know, at that age, the thought was you go, get a lot of promotions, make a lot of money, you move up the ladder, and tomorrow you're going to be the CEO. Well, corporate America doesn't really work like that. um, but what it taught me was the importance of really understanding um, your client, if you will. We talked a lot about, I worked in the advertising agency, so we really had to understand our customers. There were even chances for us to go through something called affinity groups where we started to encourage the company to look beyond who they thought their customer was, look a
Mhm.
little deeper, maybe generate more money and create more opportunities when you're starting to look at folks that have money and are willing to spend it with you, but you're not really catering to that diverse audience. And that was a fun time during my existence at Macy's, because it really gave me a chance to train some folks who weren't thinking in that way how to rethink and how to reconsider um the opportunities that were available to that company. So it really trained me to, as I moved into my own business, to try to be very thoughtful in that way as well. What am I missing? Who am I not talking to? And do we need to talk to them? It's one of those conversations that's always playing in my head. Hmm.
Well, to have that kind of impact in the corporate world, there's a couple of trains of thought. One train of thought is, well, this is working for me. I better not change it because it's working. And the
Hmm.
other train of thought is, well, if I did that here, I could do something somewhere else.
Hmm.
Which was your train of thought and why?
It was definitely the second one. But I struggle with it, to be real honest with you. And I grew up in an environment where you stay in a job until you retire and you never go anywhere else. But I knew there was something else out there for me that may not, that had more of a creative ability for creativity and something I could create of my own. That, Macy's had been developed and was its own thing. And it was wonderful when I was there most of the time, some of the time. But
Love hate relationship.
yeah. But I just always felt like there was something bigger and bolder out there for me. Um, just the nature of who I was. So when I decided to make that leap, it was ironically at a time where things were a little rocky at Macy's. Things were
Mhm.
changing. They were making a lot of shifts and of where people had to land to work, that kind of thing. So I was like, well, it's just time. Maybe that's just God telling me it's time for me to step off and do what I need to do in my world. Um,
Well, take me a little bit deeper inside of your decision with that. Was there like a specific moment, or was it more of a slow unravel, or this isn't anymore? How did that
it was a
transition?
slow unravel. Probably slow because just again, just fear, just to really hop out there. I am
Yeah.
unfortunately a person that sometimes you have to kind of push the bird out the nest. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Macy's started to go through a period of consolidation, and so they were rethinking where, Macy's was a part of Federated. They consolidated everyone under the Macy's banner, but there were corporate offices in Miami, there's some in Atlanta, some in New York, the out west, etc., where they were starting to consolidate a lot of those into one. So you could either go to New York or Minnesota. And I was
Mm.
like, I can't go to either one of those, but definitely not Minnesota. Definitely not Minnesota. So it just made me, think, if you aren't ready to make that kind of move, then you need to make some other moves.
What was going on in the background for you to know that you had something to step into as you stepped out of corporate?
Well, I stepped out of corporate and actually went to a part-time job for the city of Miami. At that point, I have to say, I knew whatever I wanted to do was going to be in the media space. I just didn't know how. I was still kind of grappling with what that was to be. Working with the city of Miami was a really good move for me because opened doors up for me, gave me a Rolodex and connections that I probably would not have had at that time. Um, and probably gave me a little bit more courage to really put myself out there as an online digital publisher, as in the media space. For a while, I tried my hand at public relations, and that just really wasn't where I wanted to be. It just gave me a chance to really kind of narrow down what product I felt like I could offer to the community, and what was the goal, what was the objective, what was the passion, what was going to drive that
Yeah.
creativity.
Do you feel like it was the right move for you today?
Yes, I do. I do feel like it was the right move. Sometimes someone told me once, again, that was one of those mind shift things, I guess. You know, you think when you get out of college it's all uphill
Yeah.
and you're only supposed to be going in an upward trajectory. But sometimes it's better to step back so that you can move forward.
Hmm.
Kind of regroup and move forward. Now, do I wish I would have done it faster? Yeah. Everybody always
Faster
gets
or sooner?
sooner and faster, really. I should I have stayed at Macy's as long as I should have, right, sooner? And then could I have moved a little faster in getting to that point? Yes.
Hmm.
But it is what it is at this point, and so I just got to keep moving forward in the direction that I'm going.
So you were in Miami when you left Macy's?
I did. I've only lived in Miami. Well, I came from college and moved to Miami, so I've only lived in Miami after college. Yes.
Okay, and you grew up in Thomasville, Georgia,
I grew up
and
in
then
Thomasville, Georgia.
you went to Florida State.
Florida State University. I'm a Seminole.
Ah, Seminole. Okay. So what that small town upbringing teach you about community that you really couldn't learn in corporate America?
There to have a sense of responsibility for your neighbor, a sense of responsibility for your community. Still today, I say I do adore where I come from because when I get stressed, I go home. I call that I go home. My
Mm-hmm.
brother still lives in the house we grew up in, so it is, it's just a chance to have a little peace. I never worry about my family because there's always a community of people that are going to be there to help take care of them until I could get there, and take care of me. Whether I'm there or not, I know I've always got a group of people that have my back. Um, when you come to a big city, there's not that always that same sense of community. So it's a little unnerving. It can be a
Mm.
little challenging. But that's the thing I know I carry very near and dear to my heart, and I hope that's what I demonstrate when I'm working with others. I have friends that laugh at me about that. They're like, "You are really different."
Yeah, well, different is good. Different is good. Different is
Mhm.
one thing, weird is another,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. I am okay with that.
I appreciate you talking about that. You talked about how you had made the move and how today you still feel like it was the right move, but you have been candid in talks or interviews or whatever where you said that you maybe weren't especially passionate or even good at the liaison work that you did, if I'm correct in that. And what's the hard thing, you know, you know, that's a pretty hard thing to admit, after you've already made the leap, especially. So, what was it like realizing that you had landed in that seat?
It wasn't liaison. Liaison, I was pretty good. PR. PR was so I got into the PR space in Miami because that's something people understand. To say you're into production and digital media doesn't always get you immediate clients. The expectation or the cost for production is a lot different from PR, etc. So I did it for a while, and it was weird how it sort of happened to me that I didn't realize that I sort of had to say it to myself. I'd gone through this emerging leaders program. Also a game changer, and I will say anybody that's in a business realm and you are thinking about scale, if you can find a program that really makes you think through or get past the obstacles that's going to help you, go from, this tier to that tier, really seek it out and jump in head first. It was a really good program for me. But one of the exercises was what is something you do in your business that you don't think you're very good at, or that you would like to get rid of. And I just kind of wrote down, I'm not good at PR. I don't want to do PR anymore. And it just, it really kind of took, it kind of takes you back when you have to be real honest and write it on paper. Like it
Yeah,
just like,
sticks with you
oh,
too.
huh?
It sticks to you too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it made me start to, in that program, think about, so what do I want to do? Where am I trying to go? And how am I going to scale in that way?
Yeah. So take me back a little bit further and to maybe to your childhood because and the reason is because I always say that life is a series of dots and lines, and every dot leads to a line, and every line leads to a dot. And so everything about our lives is connected in some kind of way. And tell me who 6, 7, 10-year-old Stephanie was.
um, I was a very pretty outgoing kid. Um, Really liked school, loved education, loved my family and friends, being around my family and friends. Very energetic. My mom, I know she was tired because she had to take me here, take me there, do this, do that. Um, but just a really kind of, when I think about it and when I think about where I've landed and how I've talked to other people, just kind of a really all-American wholesome existence. Probably the thing growing up I thought was odd was my parents were divorced. All of my other friends' parents, and they are still together 50, 60 years later. But my parents were divorced. And that, but I never, I have to applaud my mom. I never felt like, I was less than because we were divorced, or I wasn't told you can't do that because you don't have a father in the house, or any of that kind of thing. Just, you know, they were divorced, but really kind of a real holistic, kids run down the street to play with each other, home by dark. You better be back in the house before it gets dark kind of thing.
Yeah,
That was my.
yeah. I saw something on Instagram a couple of days ago where there was a young man. He was walking up, and he there were bikes all in the yard, and he said, "This is was our social media, knowing the whose bike that was, and like that's
Exactly.
Stephanie's bike there, that's Melvin's bike there, that's Joe's bike, that's Susie's bike there. So we knew who all was in the house because we knew
Right?
whose bike was." And nobody ever used the kickstand. We just dropped them on the
No, just throw
ground.
it down on the ground.
Yeah, so it
or
was a
or
whole
the
different
standing
different
at the
world.
fence. You had to be in
That's
the
it.
yard, but I'ma stand at the fence and yell at you across the street.
That's it. That's
What
it.
you
That's it.
doing?
No,
What you doing?
whole different world. Whole
It
different
was.
world.
It was. It
But
was.
how old were you when your parents divorced?
I was 7.
7.
Yeah, and it was, when you're 7, you're not fully understanding what's happening really. I was very close to my dad, so from that perspective of not seeing him every day, that was probably about as much as I could get from that at that time.
Did you
But of
still
course,
see
as
him?
you get older, go ahead. You were saying.
Did you still see him?
He moved to Miami, so he would come back once a year, so it wasn't as
Okay.
often. But as you get older and you start to see your best friend's parents and,
Mhm.
why don't I have a daddy kind of thing starts to creep in.
Yeah.
Um, but,
What kind of an impact has that had on your marriage?
so I tell everybody, I think it was a good, this is gonna sound bad. It was a good thing and a bad thing. So I feel like going into the marriage, there was a lot of insecurity, just because you didn't know how, I didn't know how to maneuver a relationship. The
Yeah.
beauty of it though is I've been able to craft my own relationship. I'm not trying to mirror my parents.
Uh-huh.
I don't have anything to
Uh-huh.
mirror. So we're able to really sort of say, this is who we are, this is what we want out of the relationship, and let's grow from there. Which I think has been better for me. Um, versus trying to replicate, what I thought I saw in the relationship. Because in all fairness, children are never going to see the real thing anyway. Parents are always trying to protect them from that. So you really don't know all the ins and outs of your parents' relationship anyway. So
Yeah, this is true. So even again, looking back at that period in your life and the things that went on, things that you lived through and so forth as a child, as a teenager and everything. What is something about your childhood or youth that uh, has carried you through where you are now, or hindered you?
I should know. That's a really interesting question. Right before I went to college, a cousin of mine sort of said, you know, one of her biggest regrets is that she not moved out of the city after college. She felt like she should have had some time away. And I was telling her I was really afraid. And she said, do it because you can always come home. And I've all like that's kind of it it never occurred to me that that was an option, that I could go home, but it's just always kinda reminded me, home is always gonna be where the heart is, and that's my safe space, and I can, if I want to today, I can go home and be okay. Um, the hindrance, though, I would say, is growing up in a small community where character plays a really big part, where, life occurs the way that it should in most cases. And then sort of being in a city where it doesn't work like that has been an ironic eye opener for me. You kind of grow up with, or I did anyway, of you go to school, you do well in school. You go to college, you do well in college. You get out, you get a good job, and then you move up the ladder and you have children and get married and it's all the things that's supposed to happen in that order. And when you kind of come out of what I call, I guess, a bit of a wholesome community, and life doesn't work like that. It's a little shocking. It's a little like, oh, it doesn't really work like that. It's different. So that's been a mental struggle
You know,
sometimes.
I heard you a couple of times say you came from a life in a very wholesome community and so forth. How do you answer to persons who might say, they think about a single parent household, and there's a lot of, stigma that are attached to different things of that sort. And some people might think that a single parent household isn't a wholesome lifestyle. Of course, we come from communities where we see things like that, and people thrive very well. How do you? What are your thoughts on that? I guess I don't know,
Well,
philosophically.
when we were coming along, that was called a broken home. It was called a broken home, and when my mind
People
shifted,
would even say it like
they
that. I
would
come
flat
from
out
a
say
broken
it to
home.
you. You from a broken home, like it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And as I became an adult, I had a chance to meet a young lady whose parents were together for at that point about 25, 30 years. But her father, unfortunately, was a bit of an alcoholic, a bit controlling. So they did not have uh I guess the family life that you would have imagined they would have had with two parents in the house. And that's when my mind shift happened. I laugh about this, but I'm not kidding when I say my the biggest thing I really worried about was could I go skating on Sunday night? Like that was the biggest obstacle I really had, or would my mom buy me something that I probably didn't really need anyway? That when you think about other than that, I never worried about having a roof over my head. I never worried about eating. I never worried about, all of the needs in my life. I never worried about my education. There's nothing broken about that. There's nothing broken about that. So, that was, um, I was a little older when I made that mind shift, but as a child, I just don't ever feel like I missed anything really. Um,
Yeah. That actually puts it in perspective because how do you define broken? Because
correct.
obviously you were looking at a situation from that other person where it was clearly broken.
Right.
It wasn't whole. It was broken.
It was but with two parents was in the home
Two
though.
parents. Two parents. It was broken, and yours may have been one parent, but it wasn't broken.
Absolutely.
Because it wasn't it wasn't broken because it was functioning like it needed to function, and that
Exactly.
was broken because it wasn't functioning like it needed to. Oh man, you just really opened up some stuff to me. I'm gonna have.
Yeah, it was really powerful to get that experience because it really gave me a moment to say, okay, you know what? This thing about you being from a broken home, so quote unquote, you're less than. And I think, some people just kind of carry statements that they've heard kind of thing, but it's not right, but it's also not something that can get stuck in your head. You can't get bogged down into that because broken is a different definition for you.
So where did you get your entrepreneurial spirit?
I think I got it from my granddaddy. My granddaddy was a construction. He owned a construction company. Let me put it that way. And for many years, we talked about I was going to go to school and be an architect, and he'd show me the plans, and we planned that I was going to be his architect and all this stuff. Well, I wasn't that creative, so it was like
Mhm.
architecture was not going to be my thing. But
Okay.
it was um powerful to see this black man in Alabama, by the way,
Hmm.
also a
Hmm.
small town in Alabama, um, be very what I guess what I from my childlike eyes could see a very successful businessman running a construction company at the time. At the time, today we would call them developers, but at the time, we called it construction company. Building many of the houses around the city, many of the buildings around the city. Just a powerful thing to see. This was a man who was also the deacon of his church and, ultimately a commissioner. Just to see him really demonstrate what that could look like, especially for a black man, was eye opening. So, I've never. My mom's friends always said I've never had sort of that traditional way of thinking. Most of my friends wanted to be teachers or nurses, and there's nothing wrong with that. All
Hmm.
noble
Hmm.
professions. That's just never been me. So,
Yeah, yeah. So that's an interesting transition, and there's a whole lot packed into that. I probably won't get to unpack it all, but what do you think people need to know or could learn from your experiences? Considering the home, being divided at 7, and then you're going through life, and then you transitioning from corporate into entrepreneurship. What is that? What is the message for people to take out of that if they hear that from you?
I hope most people will take, um, you know, as the kids like to say, life be life. And, it's never going to be straightforward. There are going to be ifs, there are going to be flows, there are going to be things that you are pleased that you've done in life. There are going to be things that you're not pleased that you're done in life. Give yourself some grace. Uh, this life, if God willing, is long and it's going to teach you some stuff. Learn the lessons. Really take a moment to stop and learn what is it you were supposed to learn about yourself and where you are and who you are in everything that you do. And just give yourself some grace and keep moving forward. Head held high as much as you can, and um, just be good to your family, your friends, your community. And to me, I think those are the most important things for sure.
Got it. Got it. Well, when we talk about your entrepreneurial journey and so forth, I read that I believe it was in 2008 you launched what would become Stephanie Creates, and it was originally Van Vark Creative Enterprises. So, why the name change, and what did the company need to become that the first name couldn't serve?
Well, Stephanie Creates was actually the DBA. And I was really operating under Stephanie Creates, primarily because I thought Vanguard Creative Enterprises was a little too long. And I guess at that point I felt like Vanguard Creative Enterprises would scream mogul. But that's not really how I was operating. So at some point I just decided let's really simplify and make the DB how I'm operating the actual name. And it gave me a chance to re-strategize and restructure. That was around the time I decided PR was no longer going to be a part of our services. And that I was going to go headfirst into media and online publishing. Um, and so, a lot of that happened right after COVID when you had a lot of time to think. I had a lot of time to think. So yeah, that too was a good move because I tried to streamline and simplify a little bit.
Well, I guess so because I guess it's what 18 years later.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah, yeah.
standing. What's the difference between the business that you set out for and the one that you actually built?
Um, Again, you have this when I first started, I met with a young lady who helped me do my business plan. And I had this very formulaic approach to it. I should do this, 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 and this. And it wasn't working like that. A lot of it was event based that was connected to production. Well, you got to generate money for that. So it just wasn't working out the same. So I really had to hone into the company I wanted to be, and it took a while to get there. I had to really massage, am I a marketing company? No, I'm not. But, what kind of company am I, and how do I realize these are the services I'm going to provide or the products I'm going to develop to make money? And so a lot of that streamline over the years has been becoming very clear about what we do versus kinda trying a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you're you've taken your entrepreneurship, and I don't know. I suppose it came from your small town connections because you have become very community driven, I believe, and taking things like Overtown, which is used to be the little Broadway, and just really just an entertainment hub during a specific time, Harlem Renaissance time, and all that, as they say. But now, all of the construction and all of the other things that came along, it just kind of maybe fractured it a little bit. So, how do you tell the story of that neighborhood, knowing that its original story was really taken away from it? You created going over town, uh, and all that. How do you tell the story?
Um, well, my passion for starting this project is, prior to us starting this, we have a lot of archivists and historians, and that is not what I am, by the way, who have sort of told that story from its origination to, unfortunately, its demise. Well, under its demise, there became a narrative about this community, and I think that happens to a lot of communities, because it's poor, now it gets the messaging that's attached to it being bad, it being criminal infested, all the little conversations that really just weren't true. And that was substantiated by, police reports. Like, it just wasn't true. It was a poor neighborhood, but it wasn't riddled with crime. You weren't gonna walk down the street and be shot and all that kind of stuff. So it was my mission to change that narrative or be part of the conversation that changed that narrative, and really make people understand it. It's fine. You'll be okay. You can walk here. It's safe. And as the buildings started to come around, people started to really pay attention. Okay, yeah, she's right. So now I have friends in Broward who get my communication that are like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that was going on there." I see that in your newsletter, or I've come down, I've seen what's happening, and it's so different now. And that's been a wonderful evolution to be a part of. That, the messaging and the narrative around what's really happening here is not that story anymore.
Yeah. Well, I know that you like, uh, helping people to, I guess you would say, participate in their own destiny. And, you've produced some works that contribute to that, but the works have ranged from the something like Conversation with the CEO series, and then, talking about an ancient Spanish monastery. And so, what kind of a how do you connect the dots on talking about the corporate
Right.
CEOs and then about a monastery? How do you
That
get from there to one to one?
And that's probably been the most difficult thing for me to have to explain, because in that respect, I don't ever want to be put in a box, because I'm a hyper creative person. So I do come up with ideas that, people probably don't think about. And like you said, it might be a monastery one day, and it might be a conversation with CEOs the other day. What I think I'm attracted to is, um I guess, that familial connection, how y- y- family or like-minded folks or like-minded ideas always help to serve others. If you think about the CEO, we talk to, primarily small businesses, some larger, about how you survive, and you start to learn everybody's going through a lot of the same things. So imagine that, somebody, with a larger company is having the same problem as somebody who owns a corner store. It's just different business. I think you learn from that kind of stuff. The monastery, we learned, how it came to be, how it made a difference in the community. So there's sort of always sort of that grassroots connection. I do use what I do to connect people with information they may need, or can benefit from.
Well, I know that you were in corporate for a long time, so that to me sounds like a an easy transition to go to the corporate side and about the CEO part. The monastery is a little bit different there. What did you learn from that?
So I got involved with the monastery because of one of my classmates in the film program. He was doing a couple of series of documentaries on monasteries. And again, I'm always intrigued by, um, new and exciting information. And what was kind of cool about it is it was a monastery that's kind of right in my backyard. It's a couple of miles up the road, but, you know, w- unfortunately, one thing I will say folks in Miami are guilty of is we kind of stay in our silo. We don't we're not good. We got to venture out and see what else is out there. And so I had a chance to really learn the history of, this monastery, not only just from the perspective of the monks that were there, but, a lot of the construction that happened back at that during that time was, you know, just really wonderful craftsmanship. I mean, this thing has been through a billion hurricanes. It survived them all. Um, yeah, and this is, during a time where men were doing things with their hands, and tools, and, this was but just the love that went into the craftsmanship, the commitment that went into it, and the restoration, and the way people have really treated and valued this property was just very wonderful to see that that's out there. There's not this desire to knock it down and start all over. Uh, there's a
That's
little bit of
good.
respect.
That says something within itself.
Mhm,
I
exactly.
I
Yeah.
know that you did a TEDx talk because when I first met you, you shared it with me, and I was really excited about having. And I'm not just trying to shift gears here. It's just that the reason that I'm bringing that up is
Mhm,
because in your TEDx talk, you talked about the the lasting impact of helping your neighbor,
mhm.
you know, and so it just plays right into what we're talking about. But tell me about a moment in your own life, maybe not just your work, but something in your life that helped to shape that message for you.
I shared before, I really know that I could always depend on my home, my folks at home. My mother got ill once, and I was here in Miami, and I can't touch her, I can't feel her. I got to kind of try to get there to her to make sure she's okay. But there wasn't a moment when she was alone until I could get that. I mean, family, friends let me know she was ill. They surrounded her, they surrounded my brother, and then when I got there, they surrounded me. Um, you know, when she had surgery, we were sitting out in the waiting room and just people just kept coming by and bringing us food. "You all right? What do you need? What da, 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 da." There was such a comfort in that, in knowing, if I'm not there, and see, it gets me a little choked up actually when I think about it. If I'm not there, they're fine. They're going to be okay until I can get to them. So, I just there's no safer feeling than that. So,
Do you think that people are losing those feelings?
yeah, a little bit. And and, I- and I think ironically, we actually my I just had my family reunion in Huntsville, and we kinda had a little bit of this conversation of we're such a global community now. Um, where you remember family and friends used to live kinda a block away from each other, and you've known it. My best friend, we were put in the crib together. So there's no other person on this earth that know better than her. Um, those we're just not in the same space anymore. We're using this as a means of connection and friendship. Like you said, the social media thing, our form of social media. It's been beautiful because we've been able to connect, but it's also divided us, I think, a little bit. And so I often wonder, and I guess it just depends on, what kind of environment you grew up in. But yeah, I don't feel like, you remember they used to talk about the child being raised by a village. I don't see a lot of that anymore.
Takes a village to raise a
Takes a
child.
bit try on a child, and I could
Yeah.
name you all my other
Oh
mothers.
yeah.
I
Oh
don't
yeah.
see a lot of that going on anymore. So,
Oh yeah.
and it's a
You
little
never
sad.
you don't hear people talk like we used to say that our house was the neighborhood house. You don't hear people talking about that,
At all, at
Yeah.
all. People kind of stay to themselves, and you know, you're a little concerned about, you know, reprimanding other people's children. So you kind of stay, it's just not. It's a different day, and it's a little sad that you don't feel
You've
that.
had just a really diverse um, life experience. I mean, I just doing this and getting ready for this. Uh, I've learned so much about you. Because you're just you, and so I've just learned so much about you just doing this. But you talk about your wit and your grit and your southern charm, and I think that that's good, and I think that that's essential. Let me ask you though, what's the closest that you ever came to saying, "I'm just gonna walk away from all this stuff"?
Oh, I do that every day. I come every day. I'm gonna get me a job because this is foolish right
Get
here.
off work at 5 o'clock and not have to think about anything else.
Right. I do it every day. And it is funny because I meet other people that say the same thing. Oh no, I just drive me. So I do it every day. People have to talk me off the ledge every day. So yeah, I quit my job every day. I quit my business every day. Um, but then you just when you settle down, okay, is it's it's who I am. It's my passion. I can't imagine not doing something toward this business that I'm building every day. I'm not saying it's always been successful to my eyes. Could I have scaled more? Absolutely. But I can't see myself doing anything else. And when you feel like it's who you are, y- y- you can't. I mean, either you spend time dredging forward, going through to get to your goal or your end game, or you give up. And who does that person become? Yeah, we have a lot of people out there that are sad they weren't able to pursue their dreams and who they are, and that did not turn out to be a good deal for them. So, you know, so it's just leaning into who you are and then just trying to figure out, okay, what can I do tomorrow to make sure what displeased me yesterday does not happen again?
Yeah, you deal with a lot of different things, and you've even had to push your business through COVID and so
Mhm.
forth, and I believe you even started a business just before COVID. How did you get through that?
Um, with my business had been going for a while, but that was when I made sort of the strategic shift as to what our product was going to be. Um, ironically, because we had nothing but free time, it really gave me a chance to sit down and venture into this space we're in now in a way that I probably would not have really had the time to do so. So I will say it was tough because we weren't making money at the time. My husband's also in the camera business, so that was really scary because we weren't making money and we're trying to figure out how. Fortunately, um we'd sort of saved up in well, not in preparation for that, but just to kind of have some savings, and that worked okay for us. But it was a scary time. But we sort of leaned in at that point and said, okay, this is a good time to really figure out what this can be and how we can make it happen. So it was good and bad. It slowed me down to really be able to do that. Um, for me, and this is going to sound obnoxious, COVID wasn't bad in that way. It was unfortunate because we lost a lot of family and friends for, just reasons unknown. Um, but it was a time to slow down, reflect, and revamp and regroup.
Yeah, yeah. You have worked with people with different races. I think you have a project called Jigsaw Parenting, and it just kind of brings together parents of different races and cultures and economics, and all kinds of things. And so you're helping them to, I guess you call it unpuzzle parenting. And I'm not sure. You must be some kind of wizard to be able to do that. But but
I'm letting the parents unpuzzle
you let
parenting.
no parents unpuzzle parents.
Let them puzzle. It's bigger.
what
They could.
what is it about when you jumped in that? Was there something or that you learned that you really didn't see coming?
Well, actually, was kind of interesting. So, it's kind of the idea behind that is you probably remember this because you're in my age range of when people used to talk about black mothers were different. So kind of I was curious to learn, not necessarily black mothers, but what are the different parenting styles based on color and race and how you were raised and all those types of factors. Does that play a part in how you parent? And so that was the reason for bringing these different types of parents to have a conversation. Ironically, with the three parents we worked with, many of them had a lot of very similar values, views, way they were raised. We even had a father who lost his wife, so he was a single dad raising two sons. Um, just really, um, not that different, really. They might, call it something different, but not that different. Just really, just doing the best they can to be the best parent they can to raise the best children that they could. So that was interesting that, so we want to revamp that year. We hadn't done that in a while, but we want to revamp it with different hosts to kind of see, are there like could there be some differences and what do those differences bring about, be it religion or culture, race, politics, all of it. Because and in those differences, is there something I can teach you and there's something you may be able to teach me that makes your parenting better.
Yeah. You had a lot of success back at Macy's over 16 years and now doing your own thing. And so sometimes when you're in a corporate environment, it's easy to identify, quantify, define success.
Hmm.
What does it mean to you now?
uh Yeah, that's a real challenging question. You know, as a business owner, success should probably be connected to money. And I will own that's one of those things that, but when you come from corporate America and you're making significantly less, that that starts to play with your mind. So you do have to identify other markers of success. The fact that I've been in business this long is quite impressive because not a lot of small businesses make it this far. Um, and that's been a ebb and a flow process, but we've survived thus far. Have we made some kind of impact on the community? Yes, that's my hope and my feeling that we've made some impact in some ways on the community. Just really those kind of benchmarks of success um, that aren't necessarily connected to money that makes you want to wake up and do this every day. And also being just able to be creative, um, connect with and partner with other people on certain things, just really opens up opportunity for you to feel successful at what you do every day until you can get to that money, the money that you used to seeing in a corporate um, bottom line.
Yeah, and then of course, there are a lot of other ways to look at success as well, but that's a big part of it. What are some of the things that you think people? My audience ranges from 35 to 55, and some older, some younger. I'm older,
Mhm.
but what do you think of some of the things that people who are in that middle of life transitioning from job to job, relationship to relationship, health challenges, things, life challenges, spiritual
Mhm.
awakenings, and all of that stuff, because at that age that's when people are going through a lot of stuff,
Correct, correct.
and so what is it that you think people are maybe getting wrong about where they are and how they're looking at this period of life?
Um, So, when you're younger, I they call it the young and dumb phase because you don't have you really are kind of just focused on yourself,
Oh, that was
most
me.
people,
That was me.
right? Everybody just kind of living their best life. When
Uh-huh.
you kind of get to our, and I'm close to your age, but you start getting to
No,
that
you're not. I'm a
30s.
lot older than you.
Look, look, we're gonna have to talk about that. Um, when I got into my 30s, it's weird. I started thinking a little like I was stuck. I felt like I was too young not to shift and adapt and do some things or pivot, if you will. But I also thought I was too old um, because I should be settled. I should know where I am. I should have 2.5 kids and a dog. I should, the white picket fence. I should have all these things. Um, don't box yourself into what you believe society says you should have as your success model, identify your own markers. Try to really lean into those things that bring you joy, and you feel really good about what you bring to the table. I think in that 30s and 40s is a lot of what you should be doing. You should have a child. You should have a this. You should do this. And it's a hard, that's that age. I don't have any children, so that's that age where I kept getting people asking me, "I'm gonna have any kids?" No. And, for a variety of reasons, you just never know why people are living the life they're living or making the choices they're making. So try not to get bogged down into um, live a good life, be a good person, um, be the best that you can, but you're never going to be your mother, your father, you're never going to be anybody else. And just to base benchmarks solely on what society's perception of you, you're never going to meet the quota ever. So you got to start setting the benchmarks for yourself.
Yeah. So true. So true. And so uh, you think that people, oh, here's what I wanted to ask you. Do you or have you had mentors in your life?
Um, okay. I kind of say no. And that's not to mean that I had a friend once that talked about mentors versus sponsors. Um, Mentors are people that you see that you want to be. If that's the case, then it would be somebody like Oprah Winfrey. That are like, I want to be Oprah. But sponsors are people that really touch you and bring you along. And so I feel like I've had sponsors in different phases of my life, that have really been really strong guides for me. Um, Probably not. Again, probably the only mentor I could think of is Oprah. And I can't get to her, so like I would love to get to her,
Six
but
degrees of separation.
hey, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on
But
it.
you've had coaches?
Oh, yeah, different people that have really had impact in my life. In college, there was a woman that was in my sorority that was just one of the sharpest women I've ever met. Primarily because she could walk into any room and command um,
Mm,
attention and
mm.
get people to really pay attention to what she was saying. And she usually was saying
Yeah.
something smart. She was an
Yeah.
example of that. And as a young adult, there's a gentleman, it could be a man or a woman, um, Don, who was also very much about, you can do this. Come on, let's go. Let's,
Mm-hmm.
put our arms together and go forward, and we supported each other in a lot of that dialogue. So yes,
Great.
along the way I've been fortunate to have men and women who have been mentors. I mean, I guess more sponsors, to
Yeah.
really
Okay.
support my growth and whatever I'm doing, and I feel fortunate in that way.
Interesting take on that. Any last words that you'd like to leave with this audience?
Well, I thank you for listening to me for a while. It's nice always to have a conversation with you, Melvin.
Yeah.
And, again, I hope what you get from my talk is, just be the best person you can, work hard, follow your dreams, pursue your dreams. I know, right now I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday about, as you get older, you start to challenge your age, you start to challenge, should I be doing this anymore? And if
Mm-hmm.
it is your desire, just work at it, and hopefully it will bring you all the joy that you are looking for, and just be the best person you can for your family, your friends, your community.
So, what's next for Stephanie Creates and for Stephanie Van Bar?
For Stephanie Creates, well, let's start with Stephanie Van Vark. I'm going to continue to grow in um in my business, and really be very intentional about how to do that, and in the ways that I'm going to do that. With Stephanie Creates, we've been in, another bit of a pivot. Really trying to lean into that online publishing. model. We just grown the platform to not only look specifically at Overtown, but other communities like Overtown throughout Miami-Dade County. We're going to start telling some of those stories as well. And then we just adapted our YouTube to Stephanie Creates TV, where we want to craft more content, more ideas, as well as partner with others on ideas to really build out a platform that's about the community story. So,
Do you feel like you're going where you want to go?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Great.
I do. I'm feeling really good about the direction. This year has been kind of that year of uh recrafting. We've created a model where now I have a partner in on the going over town side. It's really helping me build out. So I'm not doing a lot of this alone anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a sounding board. I have a partner. We have two people that are also working with us on that. So that energy has been really good as well. I've had to shift how I operate too. I've had to shift how I um, would like to move forward in order to really scale. So look at yourself. Look at yourself. If you're in this space and you're trying to figure out how to advance, look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I need to do some different stuff with me um, to really get there. And that's been hard, but it's been necessary and good.
How can people reach you?
I can be found on at Stephanie Creates, of course. If you
Say
look
that again.
at Stephanie Creates on Instagram and Facebook is one way to reach me. And actually you can reach me at info@stephaniecreates.com or Stephanie at stephaniecreates.com.
Any more oars there?
Yeah. A lot of oars, a lot of oars.
There you go. Hey, listen, it has been an absolute joy to sit down and chat with
Thank you.
you here, and I'm sure that we'll have many opportunities to
Yeah.
chat more. And I appreciate, the connection that we made. I
Mhm.
appreciate that. It's been
Same.
very valuable to me. We may not talk all the time, but if I see you wherever I see you, it'll be like we never parted, friend.
I
You know?
agree. I agree. There's definitely been a positive connection, and I do appreciate you for letting me talk for a little while.
Absolutely. Well,
Nice to be
listen,
on this side.
yeah, yep, we'll end it here. So, listen, folks, we're going to wrap this up. It's been such a joy talking with my friend Stephanie Van Vark. And until the next time, keep adapting, keep adjusting, keep reaching for those new horizons. We'll see you the next time on the Shattered Mindset podcast. Take care, take charge, and God bless.